So my name is Andy Heller. I am the labor rep for CSUEU here at Monterey Bay. My role is to help the chapter leadership, whether that be the campus chapter president or stewards, or some of you as members have come and spoken with me already. My job is to provide whatever support is needed, and that's why we're here today. We're going to be discussing the in-range progression process. So, the process overview, we're going to talk about some of the preparation involved, how to submit the form, the evaluation itself, considerations, resources, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So many of you are probably wondering, what is an in-range progression? Well, in our contract with the university, we have language that allows for what's called an in-range progression, which means that we have the ability to ask for more money based upon a number of factors that we have the ability to ask for more money upon. So officially, it's an increase in a salary within a salary range or sub-range, but it's not a movement to a higher skill level. Each and every single one of you out there is within a certain classification. Sir, what's your classification back there?
It's storekeeper 1.
Okay. And what's yours?
Media production specialist 3.
Okay. So there is a low end of the salary range and a high end of the salary range. So I'm going to throw out a hypothetical amount right now to make an example. The low end of a range may be $3,000 a month, while the high end of the range may be $6,000 a month. That's a $3,000 difference between the low range and the high range. And a lot of people within the system, depending on when you were hired, what other skill sets you had when you were hired, or the needs of the department, you may have been hired anywhere in that range, but chances are it's closer to the bottom. And so what we're hoping to do today is show you the resources and tools available to you so that you can hopefully move through that range and get some more money for yourself. So the question is, how does it work? Each campus develops a process for going through and evaluating each individual to see kind of where they should be falling in that range. The process is either employee initiated, which is all of y'all, or management initiated. The management initiated IRPs are a new thing with this particular contract. Prior to November, management was not allowed to initiate massive IRPs, which on some campuses, and we're hoping here, that management will put forth the IRP paperwork to try to get people more money without you having to do it as an individual. But what we're going to discuss today is how you go forward and do it as an individual. And as always, if there's no money to go to you, so it really is based upon available funding. So we're going to be going through the preparation, submission, evaluation, and review. So, first and foremost, you all need to know what your classification is. We already talked about what the two of the people, what their classifications were. You're also going to need to take a look at your position description. The position description is one of the two governing documents. Well, there's three real governing documents. The first one being the contract, the second one being the classification, the CQS, and the third one being your position description. Your position description is a document that outlines your day-to-day tasks within your job. So if we had, say, a graphic artist in the room, which we don't, then what their position description might say is that on a daily basis, you are interacting with photographers, with persons who are putting out publications on campus, with other staff members. You may have to be using the computer. You may have to have advanced knowledge of art or print. And so those are things that are within your position description, talking about your day-to-day tasks. The CQS, which I'm going to switch over to, let's see if this works. It did work. So this is an example of a CQS. It's a classification and qualification standard. For every single one of the classifications within the system, we have a document such as this that explains what the qualifications are to be within that classification. And this is really important because this outlines some of the broader aspects of your job. So a really far-fetched example would be if I was an ASC, so an Administrative Support Coordinator, but my position description said that I had to use skill saws, I had to be able to do some plumbing work. Those are in two very, very separate classifications. And so you might have been hired into your job thinking that that was kind of what you were supposed to be doing. But the hope is, first and foremost, we're going to compare your position description, which again is the outline of your daily duties, with what your classification says that you really should be doing. And so step number one is for you to get your position description. If you don't have it, you need to ask your manager for it so that you can take a look at it. Step two is to get your CQS, which can be found, and there will be a link available to you off of the Google Drive. But another quick way to find it is if you type into Google calstate.edu space CQS. And we're just going to click on the top link, and it's broken down by unit. So we have Unit 7 and Unit 9 here. And all of the classifications are listed. And so we're going to go back in here because that's what we were looking at. You have core functions. So in this case, positions classified within the Administrative Support Series have varying levels of direct responsibility for supporting, contributing to, coordinating, and/or leading general clerical, secretarial, or administrative support to an academic program or administrative office that serves students, faculty, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that boils down to you have office support, information gathering, communication, etc. Again, you need to start taking a look at your CQS when compared to your position description. If I click, so I'm trying to figure out how to get back to there we go. All right. So, what are reasons that you can have an IRP granted? Assigned application of enhanced skill. Well, that means that your boss has said, you know what, you're now taking on this additional task. It's a higher level function, you're doing this extra work, and that's a reason for you to have more money. Retention. Let's say that you get offered a job at the local school district. The university says, you're doing a very specific task, we really want to keep you. IRPs can get granted in order to keep you as an employee. Equity. So we have the ability to take a look at a couple different factors. The first one being your classification within campus. So if you're an ASC that's making $2,000 a month and all the other ASCs are making $3,000 a month, well, that's a good reason that you could potentially get an IRP granted. If everyone else is making above a certain threshold and you're down here, it would make sense that you should probably be a little bit higher, if not quite a bit higher. You can also be granted equity for local market equity purposes as well. So let's say you're a graphic designer. Again, I'm jumping to that one. At this university, and you're making $4,000 a month. But all the other graphic designers in the local Monterey area are making $8,000 a month. That could be a reason that you could be granted an IRP. So both the internal equity, external equity, and statewide equity as well. So all the other people that are within your classification throughout the rest of the state of California, the CSU system, that could be a reason that you could be granted an IRP. Performance. Performance is a reason to be granted an IRP. You're doing a really, really great bang-up job. I did notice that on the campus form, on this particular campus, that the performance section states that they want to know if you have outstanding or excellent as an overall rating.
So we've had a member that was rejected even when they had that, right?
I'm going to take questions.
Okay,
Yeah, we're live right now, so
okay.
We'll talk about specifics maybe a little bit later.
Okay, thanks.
Out of classification work could be another reason that IRPs could be granted. So if you picked up extra duties because, let's say, someone left the university or your department took on this other area and you're doing now the work of someone else or another group, then that could be a reason that you could be granted an IRP as well. Increased workload, similar, yet a different aspect to it. If the amount of work that you're supposed to be doing has increased drastically, you could be granted an IRP. And new lead work or project coordination. If you have been told that you are now directing a project, so you're coordinating a project, or you are providing lead work to another employee in a classification. So if you're in a classification that doesn't specifically outline that you can be a lead to another person, but you are the lead to another person, that could be grounds for an IRP. And if there's another reason that you think is a really good reason for you to be granted an IRP that wasn't listed here, we'll shoot for it too. There's no reason that when you're filling out this form later on that you only have to stick to one. You can mark as many of those categories as you think are appropriate. So, preparation tips. We suggested that you take the time to review your job description, the classification, and this is going to help you kind of determine if you're qualified for an IRP or not. You need to be honest with yourself as well as with management when you're putting this through. We gave, I think, 7 or 8 different reasons for an IRP to be granted, and if they really all apply to you, that's fantastic. I think that you should mark all those boxes, give good qualifying information in there, and I hope to goodness that you get your IRP. But if you're looking through there and you go, you know what, I'm kind of fudging this one a little bit, I only qualify for 5 of the 7 reasons. Well, be honest with yourself and be honest with management because it's just the right thing to do. If you're doing a lot of out-of-classification work, it might be that you're in the wrong classification, which is a different process aside from what we're doing today, but it's the other side of the same coin. So it's possible that you really are working out of class. If you're an ASC and you're doing graphic artist work, well, then you're probably working out of class. And you would be entitled to more money because that's a higher classification that has a larger salary structure associated with it, but it's not really what we're doing today. But if that is your situation, please contact us and we'll be happy to work with you on the reclassification paperwork as well. So, what are the procedures to obtain an IRP? First and foremost, you need to fill out the form. It is available on the Google folder. If you take a look, for those who are in this room, there's this URL right here, which is where everyone else is looking online to be viewing the YouTube channel. At the bottom of it, there is a Google Drive link that has all the documents that we're going to be talking about today, as well as then some, for you to utilize. These are resources available to you. We really want you to use them, so please, please, please take a look at that. I'm going to pull up this form real quick, an electronic version of it. Okay, so this is the form that y'all are going to fill out. It has a couple of fields that are pretty easy. The first question is the request going to be submitted by the employee or the manager? We're going to do employee. Name, department name, classification, CSUEU. And then you have all these fields down here. So, as I said, requests can be made by either the employee or management. What you guys are going to do is once you've filled out this form in its entirety, you're going to submit it to your manager. Your manager has 30 days to get this to HR with either a yes or a no. We obviously would hope that our powers of writing are persuasive enough to have your manager agree with you and that they're going to find a funding source for your IRP. And we're not going to know for about 30 days probably if it's gone through or not. At that 30-day mark, what you want to do is find out if they have submitted or not. You're going to ask them. You're going to send a follow-up email to your manager. Heck, you can do it 31, 35, 40 days. But ask the question if they've submitted the paperwork to HR. If the answer is yes, that's fantastic. You're in process. If the answer is no, you as the employee have to decide whether or not you want to submit it to Human Resources. I will tell you right now that we are one of 2 unions on this campus that have the ability to self-initiate the IRP process. Prior to November, we were the only union on campus that could self-initiate. In some of the other unions, what happens is if you fill out the paperwork and you give it to your boss, and your boss looks at it and says no, they rip it up, throw it away, and that's the end of it. That's where it stops. We have the ability where if your boss does not give it to HR, after 30 days, you have the ability to forward it on to HR. And so step 2 is if your boss does not forward it on after 30 days, you send it directly to Human Resources. That's my suggestion. You obviously are all adults and it's your call whether or not you want to do that, but I see no harm in it and I think that it's very appropriate because it's in our contract. Get you guys back onto no. There we go. So, once it hits HR's desk, HR has 90 days to make a decision regarding your situation. Let's say that they grant it, which is fantastic. I know there's one person in this room right now that's had this situation in which the IRP was granted. It goes retroactive. It might take a couple months for them to go through the process. Remember, we're talking 90 days, so that's 3 months. If it's granted on the 89th day, it goes retroactive to the first day of the pay period after HR has received it. So, strictly hypothetical situation, let's say tomorrow you turn in your paperwork to your boss and your boss says yes and sends it directly over to HR. So we're before June 1st, right? HR sits on it for 90 days and sometime in August or September, they say, you know what, you were correct. It goes retroactive to June 1. Because it's the first day of the pay period after HR has received it. So you would then get a retro check, and then going forward from August or September, those paychecks would then be reflective of the new amount that you would hopefully be getting. Oh, and decisions regarding IRPs are not grievable unless there's something that was completely violated in the contract, which does not happen very often. So this is a little bit of doubling back on things I've already said. Your administrator has 30 days to review your IRP request and to submit it to Human Resources. If after 30 days they don't, you can self-initiate and send directly to HR. HR then has 90 days to give you a response. If your IRP is denied solely based upon money, so they go, you know what, you are correct. You have taken on these duties. We want to keep you as an employee. We want to retain you. And you are making less than everyone else in your classification across the campus. You're right, but we have no money. Which is a possibility because remember, this is based upon funding. If that is your situation, what we negotiated into the last contract was that the next fiscal year, you automatically get reevaluated to see if there's money for you. You don't have to do anything as far as resubmitting your documentation. You probably want to check to make sure that they're actually in process, but you don't have to start over again. If the response you're receiving is, you're correct, but we have no money, the university should be reevaluating the next fiscal year automatically. Now here's the bummer. Let's say you submit your IRP and you think you did a great job. HR was not convinced and they say no. You have to wait 12 months before you can submit another IRP. So, if you receive an IRP, it has to be at least 3%. That's negotiated in our contract, and that's hardly fair. I think you guys should all be getting at least 50% raises, but realistically, that's not possible, and so we negotiated at least 3%. As we said earlier, the decision is final, has no appeal, and cannot be grieved unless timelines are blown, you receive less than 3%, or that piece where I was talking about has to get reviewed if they don't have the money for you. If the university does not come back and review your situation, if you were denied solely based upon lack of funds, we can grieve that as well. Any questions or concerns right now? Okay. So, a successful IRP is well-researched, well-written, and prepared with your administrator. If you can get your administrator on board, so much the better. It's always helpful to have someone else that has your back, that is putting these things through. I've seen IRPs go through without administrator support, but it's not nearly as common as having your administrator have your back on this one. IRPs, again, cannot be resubmitted for 12 months after receiving a response. IRPs can be denied for funding alone. And depending on your situation, a reclassification may be more important, and that's a conversation for another day and time. So, the Chancellor's Office website states that acquisition of new enhanced skills directly related to the employee's current position that does not warrant a change in classification, skill level, or significant increase in responsibilities and duties on an ongoing basis, that does not warrant a change in classification, skill level, or assignment of lead or project coordination responsibilities on an ongoing basis. What does that mean? Really, you can be granted an IRP for numerous reasons, and the crux of the argument has to be that it doesn't really necessitate a classification change. So that's the long way of saying that IRPs are for enhanced duties that wouldn't necessarily warrant a classification change. So, there are going to be people that I'm going to introduce real quick, or shout out to you guys, so you're aware of who they are, people that you can contact to help you fill out the IRP, and then we're going to do a sample one. Cindy Olvera is your chapter president. Flavia Kaluzdian is the chapter vice president. Jason Felice is the chief steward and secretary. Janine De Leon is the chapter treasurer. Sandy McGowan is the Unit 7 chair. Gus Leonard is the Unit 9 chair, and Phyllis Sparza is the organizing chair. hopefully everyone out there knows at least one of these people, and if they have questions, they can reach out and ask the questions. All right, so before we jump into the clinic portion, do people have any questions out there at all? Questions, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
The waiting period of 12 months before reapplying again is starting the day your supervisor submits with HR, or which day?
So the question was, when does the 12-month period begin preventing you from refiling the IRP? And the answer is from the day you receive a response from the university. Okay. All right.
Another question.
Yes, sir.
Okay. It tends to be here, or from what I've seen, that even though there's several categories for it, HR is kind of not looking towards anyone but the one where you're doing significantly more work.
Okay.
Can you comment on that a little bit? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's much that can be done about that, but it's kind of frustrating.
I can see how it could be. Sorry, the comment was, it doesn't seem that HR looks at any category except for the one where you're doing significantly different work. Is that correct?
Or more work.
More
right?
work, I'm sorry. A significant increase in work. And can I comment on that because it's frustrating? I sympathize with you. That is frustrating. And if the response that you're getting back from HR is not satisfactory and not addressing the other components of the IRP process and what you should be able to request an IRP based upon, then that's probably a bigger issue than what we're going to be able to address here today. So is it unfortunate? Yes. If those things do happen, we need to know about it so that we can at least address it on a campus-wide level with the appropriate persons. So it's not a good answer. I don't think it necessarily is going to make you go home feeling all warm and fuzzy, but it's real in that if it's happening to you out there, let us know about it so that we can at least try to address it appropriately. Yes?
You do research to support your case and have a comparison across the board on how much you're making compared to others statewide or on campus or externally. Can you share your specifics on the research with HR?
Absolutely. So, and that's a thank you for asking that question. So the question was, when we're doing research to figure out how our salaries compare to either the rest of campus or statewide, are we allowed to share that information with HR? Absolutely. Anything that you can do to make your situation all that more clear to HR that you deserve the IRP, do it. Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked that question because all that data is not super readily available to everyone out there, which again is why I'm hoping that you're going to contact a steward, someone from the union, because we do have access to that data. And we can at least, while we can't share it directly, we can, trying to think what the word is, we can take some of the information out so it's not going to be completely apparent who you are. You know, so we're going to take out some of that identifying information. So we might be able to look apples to apples, oranges to oranges, just based upon classification, date of hire, and amounts that they make. It looks like you had a question back there.
Yeah, in trying to compare myself with other statewide CSU employees, I was told in doing some research before that the CSU actually does not keep any information on salary levels based on years of experience or education. And so I'm wondering if the union has some information that is not being shared with employees on that. that might be able to better justify our in-range projections.
So the question was, based upon previous conversations or experience, a member in the back of the room said that they were told that the CSU does not keep information based upon years of experience or education levels. And this person wants to know if the union keeps that information. I'm going to ask a follow-up real quick. When you say years of experience, are you talking about within the CSU or are you talking external to CSU?
Within the CSU.
Within the CSU. The information that we do have is your hire date, the amount of time within the classification that you're currently in, your classification, what it is. We don't keep any information regarding your education level, not that I know of. So it actually surprises me that you were told that that the university didn't know how many years you were in a classification or someone else was in a classification for.
There was no table of information that would show years of experience and the level of salary that the person was earning in that classification.
Depending on how specific you're trying to get, and I know that sounds like a cop-out, but there are ways to go about it for individuals. It's harder to do it for everyone in the CSU, but if we're looking at a specific group, there are ways that we have the ability to delve a little bit deeper probably than what you were able to look at probably on the SAC-B. So we do have lists of data that are sortable. Again, I'm not going to hand that directly to you, but if you're telling me or stewards what you're looking for, we definitely can help point you in the right direction and possibly get you some usable data.
Thank you.
Other questions in the room right now? Okay. So the next thing that we're going to take a look at is one of the handouts in front of you, as well as a handout available on the Google Drive, is show up? It did. We have a list of action verbs to use in describing your skills. This is a very significant piece of or tool for you guys to use, because what it's going to do is give you buzzwords to throw into your IRPs. So, for instance, if we go down to financial skills. Let's assume you are an accountant 1 and you are looking to get an IRP. We have words such as administered, allocated, analyzed, audited, budgeted, etc. Those are words that are going to be very important for you to use because, one, they speak directly to the work that you're doing on a daily basis. And two, the people who are going to be reviewing these things might not realize that you're doing all this extra work. And so one of the things that I do want to let everyone know, and this is from years of experience that I'm letting you know this, is that when you put in an IRP, it's a double-edged sword. One of 3 things can happen. 1, nothing could happen. No changes whatsoever. You're still doing the same work. You're getting paid the same amount. No acknowledgement of the extra duties or responsibilities that you've taken on. 2, your IRP is granted. So the university acknowledges, yes, you really are doing more work within your classification. You deserve more money. And the third item is something that people really don't think about. Some of those duties that you've put out there saying that I'm doing these duties, I now deserve more money, they can get taken away from you. And that's just reality. So if you're given 110% and the university is only paying you for 100%, and they say, you know what, you're right, you've been doing 110%, that extra 10% of duties are going to be gone. You don't have to do those things anymore. The question is, who's going to do it? And you're very right. And that's where, again, you need to get in touch with a steward so that we can figure out what we can do. But the reason that I brought that up right now is just something to know is that some of those duties may get taken away. These words that we're talking about up here on the screen, these are the words that are kind of going to highlight to your manager as well as HR the extra work that you're doing. Again, these are buzzwords, but they're also very specific to your jobs. Planning. Planning is a huge one. As employees of the university, we're paid to do work. Depending on your skill level or the type of work you do, planning might not really be part of your everyday forte. You might have to budget for things. You might be the person in charge of buying for your department. You may have to figure out how money is going to be spent. That's a high-level function right there. Managers are typically the people that are budgeting for things. And so if you're doing budget work, that's a high-level function because well, we're all state employees and we're accountable to the people, the citizens of California. So again, this one document, 2 pages, is going to be important to you guys when you're filling out the IRP form. Yep.
So if extra duties are not necessarily assigned by the supervisor and they just, come up because you want the flow of the job to be better, more efficient, or it's just increased without a specific designation, does that still count as new?
So the question was, if the extra duties are they're not assigned to you, but they're self-imposed. Is that accurate? You're coming up with the new duties yourself because it makes your job either easier, it seems important, like it goes hand in hand with other things that you were assigned to do. Is that a reason to get an IRP? I think in that situation, what I would do is actually send an email to your boss asking if, essentially clarifying what your duties are, to make sure that they're on board with that's what you should be doing as well. I skipped over a very important step earlier that I want to make sure that everyone's aware of. When I started talking about looking at your position description, we need to make sure that your position description is accurate. So when you're looking at your position description, you guys should all be printing out a copy, taking a pen and marking it up and adding additional duties and responsibilities to that piece of paper. My apologies for not saying that sooner, but we want to make sure that your position description is accurate. And I think that the last question leads right into that. That's a perfect time to be having that conversation with your boss. If you're looking at your position description and going, you know what, I've been doing this additional step that takes up an hour a day, and I've been doing it for the past 8 months. Can we put this into my position description because this is really important to me? Excuse me. That would be the time to have the conversation about it. And then at that point, it goes from being kind of self-imposed to being more official as well. So it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone. All right. Are there any questions out there from people listening? Okay. So I'll tell you what, we've got 10 minutes before the end of lunch. If anyone wants to take off right now, go for it. If not, if you guys want to start filling out an IRP that is applicable to you, we'd be happy to take a look at it. And I can start doing one up here kind of fictitiously as well. So if anyone wants to get up and leave, you've got 1 minute to do that. All right. That way.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, but the camera's going this way. All right.
Come on, this campus Joe R gets a raise every semester.
There's a question.
IRP was given to a member on top of her 3%. But the IRP was given to them prior to MPP leaving. Does that negate her from asking for another one? Because she didn't do it, it was done by the MPP?
It's the self-initiated one.
So your
you can only
question
do a
is,
self-initiated
if an
person.
IRP was granted and it was initiated by a manager, does that preclude you from, within a 12-month period, continuing to request another one? Let's take a look real quick. The easy answer is, we're going to take a look at the contract. The answer is, you may not initiate a IRP within 12 months if you are the one who initiated it initially. So a management initiated IRP. Wait, I'm getting the no over here.
Hey, Andy, not that I know any better, but I'm seeing that you may not submit a request following receipt of a response to any prior IRP. So if management or employee, it's a 12-month window.
Oh.
Sorry. Wouldn't you read that the same way?
Yeah, you're looking at the
Yeah.
response to Amy.
Yep. No, you're right.
Yeah.
I was wrong. I was human. I was trying to read quickly at an angle.
Say yes, but
So what's the worst that happens if you do it?
They tell you no.
Right, so it doesn't hurt to do it.
Yeah.
And you do it all electronically, you've got it for when you're available to do it, so you can just submit it again later. So it doesn't hurt.
All right. So 2579. Yes, sir.
It's valid for people to do this electronically, right?
It is valid to do it
It
electronically.
counts to submit it via email, right?
In fact,
Attachments
it's
and-
probably better to do it via email because, one, it creates a timestamp, and two, there's not going to be any question of whether or not you sent it. And three, next year, if you happen to have been denied, you have a record of what you sent in. Yeah.
But you would still have to print, sign, and then scan.
So you have to print, sign, and scan. Let's take a look. What's the bottom of this document look like? Yep. So you can still submit it electronically. So the question was, would you still have to print it, sign it, scan it, and send it back? Yeah, but I would also suggest that you save a. Do all the computers here have Adobe Pro on it?
Yeah.
So save it as a PDF, as the original, scan it back in once you've signed it, and then send the scanned copy to your boss. You can even attach the electronic version. It doesn't really matter. And that way you have it in your sent items folder.
Something about being able to do electronic signatures, but I'm not sure if we can on this form.
I don't know what your campus standards are. I believe that is a campus by campus decision whether or not they're going to accept electronic signatures, or whether or not an email constitutes an electronic signature. Again, that's the CFO's decision, campus by campus.